Yeah, man!
Hello, my name is Miguel, and today I'm gonna cook for you broccoli, broad beans, stew. Alright, so you're gonna need a crown of broccoli, about 2 cups, florets, a can of broad beans, 400 grams, you can use butter beans instead, a stalk of scallion, you can use chive instead, it's optional, an onion, a small tomato, 3 garlic cloves, 3 garlic cloves, teaspoon or less rosemary, teaspoon parsley, teaspoon basil. You can use any of these herbs fresh, chop it fine. Between 4 tablespoons of coconut oil, teaspoon of sea salt, a tablespoon of apple cider, and a tablespoon or 2 cooking wine. Scallion. Remove dying leaves, cut off ends. The tip of the leaf that's dying and the root end. Cut that off. This is a small tomato. Just cutting the stem part off. This is an onion. I like to cut the onion in half. It's easier to handle. Remove the brown leaf, which is the skin. Remove just the brown leaf. The first layer of the onion is the strongest. Only remove it if it's spoiled, if it's spoiling. Peel garlic cloves. Cut ends. Trim spoilage. Visit JamaicaDinners.com for the recipe. This recipe will be in Vegan Dinners Cookbook. Please remember, leave a comment and give us a 5-star because we deserve it. I get a bowl, add water. Drizzle several drops of distilled vinegar in it. If you don't have vinegar, you can always use salt. Wash vegetables properly. After that, give your seasonings a final rinse. The scallion, the garlic, and the tomato. I'm going to gather all of my ingredients on this plate. Dice scallion fine. If you're using chive, do the same. Slice or dice onion. Keep ingredients separate. Dice tomato. grind garlic to puree. That's what you want. Put your ingredients aside for later. Now we're going to gather the herbs. This is a rosemary, a teaspoon of grinded rosemary. Be sure the rosemary is grinded fine. A teaspoon of parsley. And remember now, you can use any of these herbs fresh. Just chop it fine though. A teaspoon of basil, sweet basil, dried sweet basil. Next, add a teaspoon of salt. I use sea salt. Put your herbs aside for later. Now, broccoli's time. Get a bowl, add enough water, drizzle several drops of distilled white vinegar in the water. But first, cut broccoli florets. When you cut these florets, be sure to cut and leave the stem. All you need to do is trim off the leaves or tear off the leaves. This is a crown of broccoli. So usually a crown of broccoli has many florets on it. So you can just pop the florets off or you can cut the florets off. But like I said, when you do so, cut it with the stem. Do what I'm doing and cut broccoli florets. Oh yes, before I forget, you can make these broccoli florets smaller. I'm just making them a little bit big for presentation purpose, but you can make them smaller if you prefer. Get back the bowl, add the broccolis to the vinegar water and give your broccoli a good wash. Trim spoilage if you see any kind of brown spot. Although the manufacturers probably give it a spray wash before they bag it, still just give it a final rinse. Make sure there's no dirt, worm, or insect in the broccoli. So once you do that, give your broccoli a final rinse. It's best if you do this part under fresh running water. That's the idea. Put your broccoli aside for later. Now, open can of broad beans. You can use butter beans instead. If you open the can as me, cut away from you. Remove the syrup that came in the can of broad beans. Now, drizzle several drops of distilled white vinegar in the can of broad beans. Pour fresh water in it and rinse the broad beans properly. Do this between 3 times. And it's best if you do this part under fresh running water. Why we do this? For one, you want just a pure broad bean flavor in your meal. You kind of don't want no foreign objects, any kind of foreign object in it. So that's one reason. Just keep the cut can to a wall or something. To avoid it cutting you, just put the cut part of the can to the wall or to the back of the stove, but just don't leave it around. Now, put to heat a saucepan. Put the stove's gauge on 4, medium-low. Allow saucepan to dry. This one is dry. Once it's dry, add oil. Add cooking oil. I'm using coconut oil. You can use olive oil instead. Add 2 between 4 tablespoons of cooking oil. Allow to get hot, 40 seconds between a minute. After a minute or so, when you feel a little heat over the pan, add your chopped onions. Stir it in a few times. Allow it to saute. For 40 seconds between a minute, add your diced scallion or chive if using. Stir it in a few times, allow it to saute. Next, add mashed garlic. Stir it in, allow it to saute. This recipe will be in Vegan Dinners Cookbook. Remember, stop, take some time out and leave a comment. Share with others your experience when you buy the book. And give me a 5-star because I deserve it. You add the chopped tomato, stir it in a few times. Now turn the stove's gauge on 2. Low, just below low. Next, add broccoli florets, add broad beans, add the herbs and the salt. Add your apple cider, a tablespoon between 1 tablespoon of apple cider, and about 2 tablespoons of cooking wine. Stir it in, and kind of coat the broccoli and the beans with all that nice vegetables and herbs. After that, use the pan's lid, cover it properly, and allow broccoli, broad beans stew in away 2 minutes with the stove gauge on 2. This is what it looks like. This is what your broccoli, broad beans stew looks like. That's what you want. Stir it in a few times. Now measure and add tablespoon between 2 ketchup. Stir that in properly. After that, use the pan's lid, cover the pan, and allow for about another minute. After a minute, this is what it looks like. We're just about finished. We're just about getting there. That's it. Finish. Turn the stove off. Cover the pan until serving. Before serving, stir your pot up and moist up your ingredients and moist up your vegetables. Alright, take a scoop of this lovely broccoli, broad beans stew and lay it on a plate of rice. You can use mashed potato instead. This is broccoli, broad beans stew. Visit JamaicaDinners.com for the recipe. Subscribe, like, share, hit the bell. Broccoli, broad beans stew. Alright, eating time. It's a very simple, easy meal. Cooks in 3 minutes. The beans is delicious with a blend of herbal. This apple cider goes lovely with this meal. The cooking wine kind of complements it well. Surprisingly, broccoli and beans kind of goes good together. The flavor of them blend together is delicious for a vegetable dinner. I personally like it. It's healthy. Broccoli is high in vitamin C, so if you eat a lot of broccoli, you won't get sick. Meaning you won't get the flu. Oh yes, before I forget, this meal is like 3 meals in one. You can cook this meal with just the beans for a different dinner idea. And for another dinner idea, you can use cauliflower instead. This broccoli broad beans is surprisingly awesome. It's like eating a salad. It's like a salad as well. You should try cooking this meal yourself. When you do, give us feedback. And like I said, this recipe is in Vegan Dinners Cookbook. Please remember, when you purchase this cookbook, please remember, stop, write a comment, and give me a 5-star, only because I deserve it. Alright guys, until next time, bye.
Yeah, man.